Hey guys, welcome to my presentation on how to be happier and thus more successful. Hi, my name is Miranda. I am a licensed nutritionist and I have a master's degree in holistic nutrition. I am a functional medicine nutritionist, and you can check me out and my work at www.thrivenutritionmn.com. I work with clients in a clinical practice, either over the phone, through Skype, or in person. And then I also offer business services. So I will provide presentations, lunch and learns. I participate in health fairs. So if your business is looking for someone to give a presentation on how to be healthier in multiple ways, send me an email. All right, so today we're going to get started on all of the psychology on why happiness leads to more success. And just a disclaimer, I just want to remind everybody that I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to provide medical advice. I'm not here to diagnose or treat anybody. And everything we cover today is for general information purposes only. What you're going to learn today again, is how happiness leads to success and not the other way around. And then we'll talk about steps you can take to lead to a happier life. This presentation is based on information presented by Shawn Achor, who spent 12 years in Harvard studying the connection between happiness and success. It would make sense for us to define happiness, and that is an experience of positive emotions, pleasure combined with deeper feelings of meaning and purpose. The chief engine of happiness is positive emotions, since happiness is above all positive feelings. The 10 most common positive emotions are joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, pride, amusement, inspiration, awe, and love. I loved this. I found this. It's Aristotle used a term for happiness that translated into human flourishing. So I think every time I want to use the word happiness, I want to put in human flourishing instead. It's just such a wonderful thing to hear. The most common belief is that happiness comes after success. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, this is a chicken and the egg scenario. Does happiness come before success or success before happiness? And we'll talk about why happiness comes before success. And, it's probably really easy to think, well, maybe people are happy because they're more productive and earn higher pay. That tends to make sense. But if happiness were just the end result of being successful, the prevailing creed at companies and schools would be correct. Focus only on productivity and performance, even to the detriment of our emotional and physical well-being, and we will eventually become more successful, and then we will become happier. However, study after study conclusively find that happiness precedes important outcomes and indicators of thriving. One of the most famous longitudinal studies on happiness came from old diaries of Catholic nuns. 180 nuns from the School Sisters of Notre Dame, all born before 1917, were asked to write down their thoughts on autobiographical journal entries. More than 5 decades later, a clever group of researchers coded entries for positive emotional content. Could their level of positivity at 20-year-olds predict how the rest of their lives turned out? In fact, yes. The nuns who had more overtly joyful content lived nearly 10 years longer than the nuns whose entries were more negative or neutral. Clearly, the nuns who were happy at 20 didn't feel that way because they knew they would go on to live a longer life. their superior health and longer lifespans could only be the result of their happiness, not the cause. Further, happiness functions as the cause, not just the result of good health. Researchers gave subjects a survey to determine levels of happiness, and then they injected them with a strain of the cold virus. I would never sign up for that study, but some people did. So a week later, the people who were happier before the start of the study had fought off the virus much better than the less happy individuals. And they didn't just feel better. They had fewer objective symptoms of illness like sneezing, coughing, inflammation, and congestion. Okay, so we talked about happiness maybe boosts our immune system. It also increases our lifespan. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the specific things that happens when our brain is on happiness. Researchers discovered more proof that happiness causes success when they started examining how positive emotions affect our brain function and change our behavior. Negative emotions narrow our thoughts and range of actions, which may not make a lot of sense in today's society, but it really has served an important evolutionary purpose. So back in prehistoric times, if we were being chased down, the fear and the stress that we felt would release chemicals that prepared us to fight or flee. In the last 20 years, happiness has been discovered to have a very important evolutionary purpose. So they both, negative emotions and positive emotions, have an evolutionary purpose, but happiness wasn't recently discovered until the last 20 years to have that evolutionary purpose. And they found that happiness provides a broaden and build effect, and it's a broaden and build theory, they call it. So instead of narrowing our actions down to fight or flee, as negative emotions do, positive ones broaden the amount of possibilities we process, making us more thoughtful, creative, and open to new ideas. Happiness gives us a real competitive edge from an evolutionary standpoint. Positive emotions flood our brains with dopamine and serotonin. And these chemicals make us feel good, and they dial up learning centers in the brain to higher levels. They also help us organize new information, keep that information in the brain longer, and retrieve it faster later on. It also enables the brain to make and sustain more neural connections, which allows us to think quickly and creatively, become more skilled at complex analysis and problem solving, and see and invent new ways of doing things. We literally see more of what's around us. Mood can change how our visual cortex, the part of the brain responsible for sight, processes information. In a study with people primed for positivity or negativity, those who were put in a negative mood did not process all of the images in the pictures, missing substantial parts of the background, while those in a good mood saw everything. Positive emotions also provide a swift antidote to physical stress and anxiety, which is known as the undoing effect. All right, so here's another study example to find out if positive emotions could possibly affect how well doctors made their diagnosis. A trio of researchers decided to send a group of experienced doctors back to school by giving them a series of symptoms to analyze. The doctors were split into three groups: one primed to feel happy, one given neutral medicine-related statements to read before the exercise, and the third, the control group, was given nothing. The happy doctors made the right diagnosis much faster and exhibited much more creativity. On average, came up with the correct diagnosis only 20% of the way through the manuscript, which is nearly twice as fast as the control group. And the kicker is how they were primed to be happy. The doctors were primed to be happy with candy. They weren't even allowed to eat it to ensure blood sugar levels didn't skew the data. So even small shots of happiness can give someone a serious competitive edge. So I guess what I would take from this, if you're ever going to a doctor and if they're ever going to diagnose you, you should give them a little piece of candy. When we are happy, our mindset and mood are positive. We are smarter, more motivated, and then more successful. Happiness is the center, and success revolves around it. The most successful people, the ones with the competitive edge, don't look to happiness as some distant reward for their achievements, nor grind through their days in neutral or negative. They are the ones who capitalize on positive and reap the rewards at every turn. Okay, so then how does happiness or the happiness advantage apply to you at work? Well, a meta-analysis of happiness research brought together the results of over 200 scientific studies on nearly 300,000 people. They found that happiness led to success in nearly every domain of our lives, including marriage, health, friendship, community involvement, creativity, our jobs, careers, and businesses. Happy workers have higher levels of productivity, produce higher sales, perform better in leadership positions, and receive higher performance ratings and higher pay. They also enjoy more job security, are less likely to take sick days, to quit, or become burned out. Happy managers and CEOs are more likely to lead teams of employees who are both happy and healthy and who find their work climate conducive to higher performance. The good news is happiness levels can be increased. It was originally thought that happiness was almost completely hereditary, dictated by a genetically determined quote-unquote set point. But we have far more control over our own emotional well-being than that. We each have a happiness baseline that fluctuates around on a daily basis. With concerted effort, we can raise that baseline permanently so that even when we are going up and down, we are doing so at a higher level. We'll talk about some proven ways to raise that baseline. Each activity that we'll talk about below not only gives us a quick boost of positive emotions, improving our performance and focus in the moment, but if performed habitually over time, each of the following has been shown to help permanently raise our happiness baseline. And it's important for you to know that the person-activity fit is just as important as the activity itself. If one of the tips below doesn't resonate with you, don't force it. Find a personally tailored substitute. First thing that will raise the levels is meditation. Neuroscientists have found that monks who spend years meditating actually grow their left prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain most responsible for feeling happy. Take 5 minutes each day to watch your breath go in and out. While you do, try to remain patient. If you find your mind drifting, just slowly bring it back and focus on your breath. Meditation takes practice, but it's one of the most powerful happiness interventions. Studies have shown in minutes right after meditation, we experience feelings of calm, contentment, heightened awareness, and empathy. Research even shows that regular meditation can permanently rewire the brain to raise levels of happiness, lower stress, and even improve immune function. Find something to look forward to. One study found that people who just thought about watching their favorite movie actually raised their endorphin levels by 27%. Often, the most enjoyable part of an activity is the anticipation. If you can't take a vacation right now or even a night out with friends, put something on the calendar, even if it's a month or a year down the road. Whenever you need a boost of happiness, remind yourself about it. Anticipating future rewards can actually light up the pleasure centers of your brain as much as the actual reward will. Commit conscious acts of kindness. Acts of deliberate and conscious altruism decrease stress, and strongly contributes to enhanced mental health. Individuals committed 5 random acts of kindness in a day. They reported over the course of the day feeling much happier than control groups, and that the feeling lasts for many subsequent days, far after the act is over. Infuse positivity into your surroundings. While we may not always have complete control over our surroundings, we can make specific efforts to infuse them with positivity. Think about your office. What feelings does it inspire? People with photos with their loved ones aren't just decorating. They're ensuring a hit of positive emotion each time they glance in that direction. Making time to go outside on a nice day also delivers a huge advantage. One study found that spending 20 minutes outside in good weather not only boosted positive mood, but broadened thinking and improved working memory. Which means take a break. Breaks actually lead to increased productivity. Spend money, but not on stuff. Money can buy happiness, but only if it's used to do things. Positive feelings we get from material objects are frustratingly fleeting. Spending money on experiences, especially when you're with other people, produces positive emotions that are both more meaningful and more lasting. What are your spending habits? Draw 2 columns on a piece of paper and track your purchases over the next month. Are you spending more on things or experiences? You'll find out. Exercise a signature strength. A signature strength is deeply embedded in who we are. You can take a free survey at www.fiasurvey.org to find your top 5 signature strengths. The more you use your signature strengths in daily life, the happier you will become. Now we're going to transition a little bit more into some of the psychology of happiness and how we have control over that happiness in other ways. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we define our own realities, the mental construction of our daily activities, more than the activity itself, defines our reality. How much more efficient and productive, not to mention happy, could you be if you changed the way you view the hours in your workday? How can you use your relative experience of the workday to your best advantage? The most successful people adopt a mindset that not only makes their workdays more bearable, but also helps them work longer, harder, and faster than their negative mindset peers. Think of opportunities at work to shift your mindset. Are you stuck in a meeting? Create your own objective. Force yourself to learn 3 new things before the meeting ended. If you can't learn from the actual content, what can you learn from the speaker about how to or not to give a presentation? How would you present the idea differently? Now think of tedious tasks at work. Redefine them. Change your language. Reconnect with the pleasure of the means instead of focusing on the ends. And you will adopt a mindset more conducive not only to enjoyment, but to better results. Ask yourself what potential meaning and pleasure already do exist in what you do. Rewrite your job description into a calling description. How can the same tasks be written to entice others to apply for the job? How can your current job tasks be connected to a larger purpose? The mindset about your abilities. Just as your mindset about work affects your performance, so too does your mindset about your own ability. The more you believe in your ability to succeed, the more likely it is you will. Studies show that simply believing we can bring about positive change in our lives increases motivation and job performance, that success, in essence, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Our beliefs about our abilities are not necessarily innate, but can change. as our mindset is almost always in flux. A study used a group of Asian women who were given math tests on 2 separate occasions. The first time, they were primed to think about the fact that they were women, stereotypically worse at math than men. The second time, they were told to focus on their identity as Asians, generally thought to be math whizzes compared to other ethnic groups. The results: the women performed far better in the second situation than they did in the first. IQs hadn't changed, and neither had the difficulty of the questions, but in the second instance, they believed more in their ability, and this was enough to make a difference in performance. So ask yourself, what identity are you wearing today? If you're sporting self-doubt, you've undercut your performance before you even begin. When faced with a difficult challenge or task, give yourself an immediate competitive edge by focusing on all of the reasons you will succeed rather than fail. Remind yourself of all of the relevant skills you have rather than those you lack. Think of a time you have been in a similar situation in the past and performed well. Have to give a big presentation but believe you're a weak public speaker? Focus on how prepared you are and how much research you've done on the material. Now, this doesn't mean you should ignore your weakness or take on tasks you can't handle. It just means to focus on what you are actually good at. Falling up. Bereavement, bone marrow transplants, breast cancer, chronic illness, heart attack, military combat, natural disaster, physical assault, refugee camp. This is a nightmare list of the very worst things that can befall us, but it also happens to be a list of events that researchers have found to spur profound positive growth in many individuals, known as post-traumatic growth, as opposed to post-traumatic stress. On every mental map after crisis or adversity, there are 3 mental paths. One keeps circling around where you currently are. The negative event creates no change. You end where you start. Another leads you toward further negative consequence. You are far worse off after the negative event. This is why we are afraid of conflict and challenge. The third path leads us from failure or setback to a place where we are even stronger and more capable than before the fall. Finding this path is challenging because, ironically, we have trouble seeing this most positive, productive path. When we feel hopeless or helpless, we stop believing that such a path even exists. Our ability to find the third path is the difference between those who are crippled by failure and those who rise above it. Studies show that if we are able to conceive of failure as an opportunity for growth, we are all the most likely to experience that growth. So an example of this, I love the story. 2 shoe salesmen were sent to Africa in the early 1900s to assess opportunities. They wired separate telegrams back to their boss. One read, "Situation hopeless, they don't wear shoes." The other read, "Glorious opportunity, they don't have shoes yet." That just really highlights being able to see that as an opportunity for growth, that whole situation as an opportunity for growth. Eureka, we failed. I don't know if anyone's ever said that before, but it's kind of fun to say it. The most successful people see adversity not as a stumbling block, but as a stepping stone to greatness. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Walt Disney was fired by a newspaper editor for not being creative enough. The Beatles turned away by a record executive who told them that guitar groups were on their way out. Psychologists recommend that we fail early and we fail often. The earlier we face difficulties and drawbacks, the better prepared we are to deal with the inevitable obstacles along our path. In an experiment, People were in a software training program. Half were taught to prevent errors from occurring, while the other half were guided into mistakes during training. The group encouraged to make errors exhibited greater feelings of self-efficacy, and they had learned to figure their own way out of mistakes. They were also far faster and more accurate in how they used the software later on. Regaining control. If work feels overwhelming, discover self-awareness and describe it. The quickest people to recover from high levels of distress are those who can identify how they are feeling and put those feelings into words. Brain scans show verbal information immediately diminishes the power of negative emotions, improves well-being, and enhances decision-making skills. Write in a journal or talk to a trusted coworker is the first step towards regaining control. Identify what aspects of the situation you have control over and which you don't. This helps tease apart the stresses that we have to let go of because they're out of our hands, while then we're also able to identify areas where our efforts will have a real impact. And then set small goals that you can quickly accomplish. Small goals help you focus your energy and efforts, increasing the likelihood for success. You can't sprint your way to a marathon. In today's results-obsessed workplace, it's no wonder we're impatient and overly ambitious. We want to be the top salesman or earn the highest bonus or have the biggest office, and we want it now. If we hire a new CEO, we're expecting to be profitable the next quarter. If we hire a new head coach, we're expected to win the very next game. In the real world, the all or nothing mindset almost always guarantees failure. The feelings that result from frustrated attempts and overwhelming stressors hijack our brain, jumpstarting a vicious cycle of helplessness that puts our goals even further out of reach. Set goals that challenge you, but are not so difficult that they discourage you and make you want to give up. Smaller, more manageable goals helps us to build our confidence and celebrate forward progress and keeps us committed to the task at hand. Thriving with social investment. Nothing is more important to our success than holding on to the people around us. Under work stress, when a daunting project gets dropped at our work desk, and when we get consumed with worry that we'll fail to meet the demands, we start to eat lunch at our desks, working late, coming in on the weekends. We're focused like a laser, or so we tell ourselves, which means no FaceTime with direct reports, no casual hallway chats, no time for non-essential calls with clients. Emails are short and impersonal. As for family and friends, well, they're the first to go when we're in crisis mode. As the deadline looms, we shut off our cell phones, retreat into the bunker of ourselves, and double lock the door. We retreat into our own shells when we need to be reaching out to others the most. The most successful people take the exact opposite approach. Instead of turning inward, they actually hold tighter to their social support. Instead of divesting, they invest. Not only are these people happier, but they're also more productive, engaged, energetic, and resilient. They know that their social relationships are the single greatest investment they can make in the happiness advantage. 70 years of research displays evidence that our relationships with other people matter more than anything else in the world. Like food and air, we seem to need social relationships to thrive. Having a community to count on, family, spouse, friends, colleagues, allows us to multiply our emotional, intellectual, and physical resources. We bounce back from setbacks faster, accomplish more, and feel a greater sense of purpose. The effect on happiness. Social interactions jolt us with positivity in the moment. Then each of these single connections strengthens our relationship over time, which raises our happiness baseline permanently. When a colleague stops you in the hallway to say hello and asks about your day, the brief interaction sparks a continual upward spiral of happiness and its inherent rewards. In conclusion, capitalizing on the happiness advantage. We now know that it's not just our own individual success that orbits around our happiness. By making changes within ourselves, we can actually bring the benefits of the happiness advantage to our teams, our organization, and everyone around us. Positive emotion is contagious. People subconsciously mimic body language, tone of voice, and facial expressions of those around them. Once people mimic the physical behaviors tied to these emotions, it causes them to feel the emotion themselves. Smiling, for instance, tricks the brain into thinking you're happy, so it starts producing the neurochemicals that actually do make you happy. Changing your behavior first, even your facial expression and posture, can dictate emotional changes. All right, everyone, thank you so much for your time today. Hopefully it was helpful, and enjoy the rest of your day.